Welcome to the Heidi Thorne Show. I'm your host, Heidi Thorne. And in this podcast, I share my real world self publishing and small business experience with you. So let's get started with today's show. Now, today we're going to talk about a different aspect of the 2018 Self Publishing Survey. And what we're going to focus on today is self publishing experience. In other words, the more books you self publish, does that mean you make more money? Now, for me, I think this was the most troubling finding from this survey. It aligned with what I saw in 2016, but I was sad to see that it was confirmed. First of all, the most popular answer for all self-publishing experience levels. That means anybody who had at least one book published. So there was one book, two books, 3 to 9 books, and then 10 plus books. The most popular answer for all of those different experience levels was $1 to $99 per year. Ouch. Oh, that's troubling. So thinking about it, if you publish more, you would naturally think that you should make more. But that's not the case. And there's so many factors that contribute to this, but I had to break down the data a little bit further. I just couldn't believe that it was that bad everywhere. So, just a reminder, as we talked about in one of the previous episodes, only 5.1% of the surveyed authors who answered the income question and had at least one book published, only 5.1% were making over 20 grand a year in self-publishing income. That's not a lot, but I wanted to break it down in terms of these various experience levels. So I looked at those who are publishing one book. No one is making over 10 grand from the one book level. Those who were doing 2 books, there was a surprising blip in that experience level. I had 2 authors, only 2, who were making over $10,000, but they were really killing it. One was making 60 to 70, and the other one was making 70 to 80. So, wow, that's amazing. Hopefully they were reporting their honest incomes. There was no reason to lie. It was an anonymous survey, so I'm going to guess that it was true. But only 2 of them in the 2 book level were making over $10,000, and they were doing really well. Here's the more troubling one, the 3 to 9 book experience level. In other words, you have 3 to 9 books in the marketplace as self-published. Only one author of the whole group that at that experience level was making over 10 grand, and their income level was $30,000 to $40,000. So, they were doing okay for sure, but we're seeing a not so good trend here. As you keep going upwards, it doesn't seem to be progressing quickly upwards in terms of the number of books that you're publishing. So in the last group, which would be 10 plus books, in other words, they're probably doing publishing as a big chunk of their business. We had 3 people in that income level that were making over $10,000. One was making $10,000 to $20,000. One was making 30 to 40, and we had one author who was making 100 grand plus. So I think it's a little bit of a confusing mix there, but I think you can see pretty obviously that the more books you publish doesn't really mean that you're going to make more income. And I know I have found that to be true for myself because I I have published maybe 20 books or so, and most of them do nothing. But my first book, which is on promotional products, this one I sell more of than any other book every single year since I published it in 2011. And it's very frustrating because I think I've done better books and ones that have more wide appeal to the business and small business marketplace that I thought were better. But the market will be very volatile and it's very unpredictable. So I don't think we can naturally say that if you have more books in the marketplace as self-published that you'll naturally make more money because there's so many factors involved. And I know that's really frustrating. And I wanted to go a little bit deeper into the data. So what I did was I performed a regression analysis on it to determine if the average author income, if there was if experience level in terms of the number of books you had really was impacting it. And all I could find from that test was that about 8% of the variance in incomes could be attributed to self-published experience. And if you know anything about this type of analysis, that's not a strong point to make. If you only have 8% of the variability can be attributed to a factor, it's almost a non-factor. So I know this is kind of a confusing result, and it is a very frustrating one because you don't know whether you should publish more books. And you can because it's really cheap these days to self-publish. So it really doesn't, I guess it doesn't hurt. And if you're someone like me, where I've used my books mainly to build other parts of my business, so it's really more of a part of my content marketing platform. So I'm not really that concerned. However, as I shifted parts of my business, I was more concerned about making book income than before. So I know it's a concern for me too. So where does this leave us? Well, I think you have to look at the investment that it is going to take, not only in terms of dollars, because every time you self-publish a book, there's going to be some costs involved, probably for editing or maybe some graphic design. And at the very minimum, if you're doing everything yourself, there's going to be a time investment involved. And I think you have to look at that in terms of what you might be making in terms of income and say, well, is this worthwhile? So do some analysis and on your next book project before you just launch into it and spend a lot of either money or time, realizing that it's not going to be an automatic money increase maker. If that's the easy way to put it, it's not going to automatically increase your income. So word to the wise. So I hope you have found this helpful or informative. And if you have, I would appreciate it if you would go over to iTunes and give the Heidi Thorne Show a nice rating and review. And while you're on iTunes, don't forget to subscribe to the Heidi Thorne Show. The Heidi Thorne Show podcast, so you don't miss an episode with more information like we talked about today. If you don't listen on iTunes, I'm also on Stitcher and Podbean. And if you'd like to listen on your Alexa device, you can use the AnyPod skill to listen to the Heidi Thorne Show on your Alexa. The video podcast version is on YouTube. All you have to do is subscribe to my Heidi Thorne YouTube channel and you will get all the new videos. Now, if you want to see some of my self-published books, you just have to go to my author page on Amazon.com. And if you'd like to connect with me, my website is simply HeidiThorne.com. And of course, I would truly appreciate it if you would share the Heidi Thorne Show podcast with your author friends on social media or wherever you like to share it. Thank you so much for listening and for your support. I'll look forward to talking with you again in the next episode. In the meantime, have a great day.